Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. We are on day 5 and I'm Samina from thecodecottage.com and we are making our very own WordPress theme from scratch. So today on day 5, we are going to be making this subscriber newsletter box. It's a subscription box essentially. So for now, it's going to be pretty static where we'll be using HTML and CSS to design the subscription box. But then when we take it into WordPress, we will be making this dynamic and using MailChimp, which is my preferred newsletter service provider, and we'll be linking that. So every time a user or a new visitor to your blog or website clicks on subscribe, it will take them to the MailChimp database where they can be a part of your email newsletter group. So let's get started. Here I have my index.html. So in the last video, we created up to the featured categories section. So I'm just going to quickly show you what we had made. So this is what we had done. This is the featured categories and we have a fixed navigation bar here. So let's move on and start building our subscription box. So in our index.html, the very first thing that I will do is copy the comment as always, just so we know exactly what we are building here. So I'm going to call this the newsletter sign up section. I'm just going to do this so it's right in the center and we can see what we are doing more clearly. So here I have the newsletter sign up section ready. So the first thing, as always, we will now create a section tag. I'll give it a class of sign up container. And I will also add that comment here. Perfect. Now I'm going to add a div with a class of row. Now within this section tag, because we are creating a newsletter sign up box, there are some other additional details that we need to fill out. So that's going to be data type and that's going to be background. And then we'll also create data speed, give it a value of 4. So that's good to go. There's nothing much to think about over here. These are just standard values that you add to the newsletter. So let's begin. So we've created our row. So I don't know if you heard that, but we have an exciting thunder and lightning show going on today. We are receiving heavy rains, and so there is every possibility that you'll be hearing a lot of the thunder. So get cozy wherever you are, whichever part of the world you're watching this from, and let's continue. So now I'm going to create another container within that row, give it a class of sign up form, because we'll be styling that later on. Dot sign up form. Perfect. Now we'll begin with the actual body of our subscription box. So we'll start with this. So I'm going to give it an H4 heading and I'll call it sign up to our newsletter or sign up to our newsletter and receive freebies, offers and updates. You could write absolutely anything, and in fact we will be customizing this later on, so there's nothing to worry about. Also, I think I'm going to give my H4 a class of newsletter sign up title, just so I can style it better. Newsletter sign up title. So we have the H4 sorted. Now the next thing we will work on is creating these text boxes and the box for the email and the subscribe box. So for that, these are all form elements. So we'll be creating a form tag. I'm going to give it a class of form inline. You can name it absolutely anything, but this is an inline form. It's going to be within our page. So I'm just trying to keep it as semantic as possible. I will give it a role of form. Now, within this form, I'm going to create form groups. So your name, or this enter your name section, is going to be one form group, and this one, the email one, is going to be another form group. And then this is obviously just a submit button. So there are two form groups. I will start with div and give it that class. So I'm going to give it the same class because the styling for both is going to be very exactly the same, rather. So I will call this form group. Close that comment. Perfect. And I'm going to create another one of these. So this one is for the name and this one would be for the email. Now within that div tag, I'm first going to create a label class. So this is essentially for screen readers, in case someone wants it to say it out loud for them instead of reading it. So we add the class of, we give it a class of SR only, which is basically screen reader only. And then there will be another for over here, and that's going to be subscribe name. So you could basically add whatever you want. I just want to keep it as semantic as I can. And within this, I'm going to give enter your name or your name. Now this is not going to be visible when you when you add this to your form. So let's just see. What I'm trying to tell you is you're not going to be able to see that because that's essentially, like you can see, there's no text input here. That's only for screen readers. So let's get back to Sublime Text, and I'm going to start creating that input over there. So the type here is going to be text. I'm not going to give it a name. It's a very simple form, so don't want to complicate anything, and just give it a placeholder. So placeholder is the text that displays right here. This is placeholder text. So I'm just going to give it, where's my Sublime Text? Here it is. So here I'm going to give enter your name or just your name. Just keep it as simple as you can. Perfect. I'm going to copy this and paste it over here. So this will be now subscribe email, right? Enter your email. Right, and here now input type will not be text, it will be email, and placeholder your email. So let's just save that and see what it looks like. So as you can see, we have your name and your email displaying over here, so that's perfect. Now it's time for us to add that little submit button. So we're going to work on that. That is extremely easy, really simple. So input, now type is going to be submit over here. Then we are going to give it a class because we want to style that submit button. So I'll give it a class of btn cat again because I wanted to have the styling of the category buttons. As you can see here, the subscribe is a green background with cream colored font, the same as the featured categories. So that's the button class I'm going to give it. So it adapts to the styling, and I'm going to give it a value of subscribe. So that is the end of the form. I'm just going to, form inline. Perfect. So now I'm just going to refresh and see what happens. That's brilliant. We've got our main bare bones structure of the newsletter ready. Now, as you can see, it's not even close to what we want it to look like. And also this button looks really weird. It's got some styling to it that gives it a very different look from what we have over here. So let's just head into our style sheet and we'll start making changes to that. I'm also just going to put that space back just so it doesn't look very okay, so now we are in our style sheet. Now one quick change, I have just noticed this over here. The last time I had mentioned that we should try not repeating the same properties again and again, and as you can see here, I have done exactly that. We have width 90, margin left 5 for both of these. So I'm just going to take all of this out. I'm going to take this, cut this and add it over here. Let's see. And now we have that. So perfect. Let's move on. I will first create a comment tag. And here, as you can see, I'm going to add my newsletter sign up section. Perfect. Now let's begin. So the first thing that I want to target is the sign up container, the actual container which includes everything within our newsletter sign up form, and give it that background. So we wanted to have this cream colored background. So that's what we're going to do. So sign up container. And to that, I'm going to add a background color of cream. Let's do that. I'm also going to give it a padding because, okay, let me just show you why I would do that. Obviously, by now you may have guessed it's going to be really tight and we want it to look a bit more spacious. So let's get on with that. I'll give it a padding of 50 pixels from top and bottom and 40 pixels along the sides. Let me just check if that's okay or if we need to make any further changes. Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. Now let's move on. So now I'm going to go into my sign up form and I want to take this part. So another thing that I've noticed, actually, we don't really need to give this a class like I had stated earlier, because if you have seen the video from yesterday, we can directly just target this class and the h4 tag within this class. So I have everything within this div. I have the form and this text within the div. So I don't actually need to add a class to this. I can instead simply use this class and target the h4 tag within this class. So let's do that. Dot sign up form, and the h4 tag within that sign up form will have a text align of center. So let's see what that looks like. Oops, it's right here. Perfect. And there you go. Our text is now center aligned. Now we have to bring this to the center. So before we move this to the center, we don't want this one below the other. We want this one next to the other. And the best way to do that is by giving it a float. But just giving it a float will not be enough because we also want to define the sizes. So let me just quickly show you what I'm trying to say. So form group, that's the class we had given both the text, the name and the email input types. So let's just give it a float of left. And I'll show you what happens when you do that. So it's just these two that get floated to the left and it's not exactly occupying the right spaces, and the subscribe is completely out of depth. So we'll give it a width of 33.333333%. So it divides all these three elements into three equal parts, as you can see here. This is exactly what we want. And now we'll reduce the right margin. So we have the margin right of 20 pixels. Let's see what that looks like or if we need to make any changes. That looks okay to me. And we will be making some changes further. Now I'm going to attack the form inline. So that's the entire form class. Now I want it to be center aligned. So to make it center aligned, we obviously cannot do text align equals center. So I am going to divide this whole thing into a width of 40%. So I want it to have a total width of 40%. Now obviously if it's 40, it needs to be a full 100. So how do we make up for that 100? We have 60% left. So we're going to divide that 60 by 2 and give it a margin left of 30%. So 30 plus 30 will give 60. And let's see what happens when we do that. That's brilliant, but there is some real issues going on over here. And we are just going to give it an inspection and understand why that's happening. I'm just going to give it a margin top because obviously it's very dangerously close to the text and I don't want that. So the margin top can be 30 pixels. Now everything else you're just going to have to try and experiment and figure out why that's happening. So let's do that. As I told you before, if we had left that width 33 out, this would go on its own line and we don't want that. We want everything to be close to each other. So I'll just reduce or increase this rather to 50 pixels just to see what happens when you do that. So clearly it's not going to work because when it gets pushed to 50%, this comes down automatically. So let's make it 10. Hopefully this will be okay. Perfect. Now we still have a lot of styling to do, so don't be disappointed. Now we are going to give some styling to that input types for text and all of this. As you can see, this is really overlapping, so we need to add some styles to that. So that is going to be a global style. So we are going to go into a button area, and as this is a button or a text input itself, so we are going to give it a global style. So I'm going to give it input type equals text, comma input type equals email. So these are the two types that we are trying to target. Now I'm going to give it a width of 100% because I want these to be the full width that they possibly can within their containers. So as you can see now, the one that was overlapping, let me just quickly, okay, I can actually just inspect it for you just so it's easier for me to explain what I'm trying to say. I will go here, inspect that. So we have the input text. Now you have the width 100%. If I take this out and you see this, it kind of overlaps. Your email is overlapping over your name and it's obviously overlapping with the subscribe as well. But when you give it a width of 100%, they are 100% of their container. So this is the 33.33% and it takes 100% of that 33.33%. Similarly over here as well and here as well. So I wouldn't say here because we still haven't targeted this. We've only targeted type text and type email. So now let's move ahead and add some more styling to this actually first of all, because I don't want it to be so thin. I want it to have a good amount of space around its placeholder text. So I will give it a padding. Now I'll just give it a padding of say 7% and see what that looks like. If it's too much or too little, I think it's very chunky looking now. So I want it to be say 5%. I think this looks pretty good. So I will now also add a nice little border because I just love having that around. I'll show you what I'm trying to say. I just feel like that's one of my signature styles when it comes to styling the text boxes and stuff. So I just love that it has this beautiful outline to it. It just makes it stand out. You can completely ignore that if you want. It's totally your call. Now, this is not something I want. As I mentioned earlier, this button looks weird. It doesn't look like this. We want consistency. So for that, we will only be targeting input type equals submit. So let's get rid of that border. So I'm going to give it a border of 0. So it's not going to have any of those border styles. Perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. Now I also want to make some changes to this button, because one major difference here is that you see a pointer, a finger coming up when you hover over this, and a cursor otherwise, right? But that doesn't happen here. So we want that pointer to appear. So the best way to target that would be input.btn cat and cursor equals pointer. So when I refresh this now, you'll see, let me get rid of that. Yeah. So you'll see that when I hover over it, we have this pointer coming up. Perfect. Now I want there to be margin top. Let me begin with 0 first. So as you can see now, because the margin top is 0, it starts exactly where the other two begin. But this will also need to have the same padding as these two. So let's do that. Let me first just begin by doing a padding of 5%. I don't want it looking chunky. So, okay, it definitely looks chunky. So I'm just going to reduce this to say 2% to see what happens. Maybe 2.5. Okay, I would say I need it to be slightly bigger. So how about I change to pixels? Okay, 2.5%, maybe I can just stick with percent. So 2.5 top and bottom, and perhaps 3% from the sides. So it's a bit more spacious and not chunky looking. I actually quite prefer that. I think it looks really nice. Yeah, I'm happy with that, but I'd say I would try going for 5 just to see what that would be like. And I think this is something I'm super happy with. I love how that looks. Now again, there's one problem I'm noticing here. There's a transition here. It's very gentle and it's very smooth, ease in and ease out, but here it's quite rough. Easy peasy, transition, all 0.5 seconds, and then let's refresh that. It should work now. Yep. There's a smooth ease in and ease out feature here. So I am happy to say that we have actually finished our sign up section. So we have created quite a bit so far, and I hope you're really proud of yourself, because this is amazing work. And we've successfully completed the sign up form as well. Now tomorrow we will be working on this, the featured blog section. And we are very close actually to finishing the homepage, because then we just have the about and the footer. We won't be coding this obviously, because this happens with a plugin. So we won't be working on this at all. Of course, we will be using this in WordPress because we need to create a space where we can put this. But in HTML and CSS side of things, we just have a couple of things to deal with right now. And I am so excited, because then we're going to move on with the blog page. So I hope you are enjoying this journey. It's time to say goodbye now. It's time to wrap up, and I'll see you again tomorrow with day 6. And if you like this series, give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Additionally, if you have any comments, feedback, suggestions, then do put that down in the comments below. If you have any recommendations for a future video, if there is something that you'd like me to work on, a little mini project of sorts, put that down and I will obviously get working on it right away. So until I see you again tomorrow, goodbye.